Here's the story that was told to me, which was circulating around social media, was the fact that, like I said, the songs are on the Terminator soundtrack. When you listen to Ginger, whenever she's listening to songs on the Walkman, that's one of your songs. And then the other two songs are whenever Sarah Connor goes into the Tech Noir club.
Right.
And
Burning in the Third
my
Degree. Right.
Right, and photoplay, yeah. So my friends and I were like, these songs are awesome. We should find out more about this. And then I started digging around, and one of my buddies was like, yeah, it was a group, and they were not an actual group. And I was like, oh wow, that's interesting. They should have been, given the talent that was behind it.
Like that. And I think some of that got started because of who my husband was at the time. And then people thought with Jonathan Cain of Journey, oh, she's just this, his trophy wife or something like that. And unfortunately, that whole thing actually was part of the reason what hurt the band. I mean, it really hurt us badly. The true story is I was already a singer when I met him. That's how we met. So, and he was in the band called the Babies, who at the time I didn't even know who they were, but they were a pretty good band too. And when we got married, I was like, I'm like 9 or 10 years younger than Jonathan Cain. And I like to say 10, but it's 9. But when we got married, he was still in the Babies. And I had offers and record deal offers with Atlantic Records and all different kinds of things. Because like I said, I was a singer. My grandmother was an opera singer, so singer. And then he joined Journey while I was in negotiations with Atlantic Records and all these Geffen Records even. And then CBS Records even came into it, which is Journey's label, right? And then RCA. So I ended up signing with RCA Records. But here was the bad thing. My husband, I'm young, I was like 21. And he was like, you need to change your name, because my real name is Tané McClure. My dad was an actor, to Tahnee Cain, because you're married to me. And I'm not trying to say he's a bad guy or anything like that, but he was insistent. And I said, I think that's going to be dangerous, because they're going to think, Tahnee Cain, Jonathan Cain, now it's Journey's wife. Ah. And I was modeling too at the time, which is like model, but I was a singer for crying out loud. So what ended up happening, yes, my first album came out. I had a single called Holding On, and it was fairly successful. But the critics often compared me to Pat Benatar, which one would think is a compliment. But this whole manufactured whatever they might have thought, that kind of hurt the album. So that album didn't do as well as we wanted. But then my manager at the time, Bud Carr, who I'm still really good friends with, basically got an opening for me. And by this time, to make a long story short, I wrote the song Burning in the Third Degree. And he felt, my God, I think that song would be really good for this movie called The Terminator. So long story short, eventually I had split with my husband, everything like that. But it was my song, my master with the band. And we gave it to James Cameron. And they went, oh my God, this is a great song. And those songs ended up being more popular than what I had recorded while I was still pretty much with Jonathan Cain. Anyways, so the frustrating part is that then after that, I signed to WGG, CBS Records, and I was on tour doing all these different things. But you know how the world can be. They assume a lot of things, and that kind of damaged the career. But yeah, so real band. And these guys would defend me. They'd be mad too. They were like, real singer, went on the road, sang all over the place, it was Cow Palace. I don't even know if it's still there, but up in Northern California, 20,000 people. And then we sang in, so many places. Got my voice hoarse in Las Vegas.
The confusion comes from they think that Jonathan manufactured the band as a
I
result
kind
of
of
you
think
being
that's
his
what it
spouse.
was. I think that's where it started, because I was outshined, which makes total sense. Journey at the time was really huge. And, and then, it was sort of like, I was modeling. I don't know. I just think people want to go, wait a minute, that can't really be her voice. And how did this happen? But you guys, this was before, we didn't have auto-tune back then. I'm old.
Yeah.
There was no such thing. So that was my voice. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they did have that Milli Vanilli scandal, but that was years, I think, a little bit after, and that still wasn't auto-tune. That was somebody entirely
Right.
different. And I
Right.
was on tour. And I did go and open for like Linda Ronstadt in Germany and all different kinds of things. So I was around. Yeah, that's
How
it.
did you get picked up to be in the Terminator soundtrack? Who you said somebody
Bud
took
Bud
notice of
Carr.
it? And
No, Bud
okay.
Carr was my manager, and he was starting to become a music supervisor for certain movies. And at the time, oh, I have a funny story. Okay, so
Okay.
at the time, he knew this semi-unknown director called James Cameron, and and he was doing this completely unknown movie called The Terminator. And my manager was on my side, and he's like bummed that he couldn't get my music signed to a new label, and he's got this really good tracks. I'm going to take it over to James Cameron and that whole team and see if they want to put it in the movie, which I kind of briefly talked about earlier. So he does. And, Mike, Bud Carr says to me, he says, they would love your songs. They're going to put it in, you get make a little money, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So we end up going to a very early screening of The Terminator. And we got Michael Biehn and Linda Hamilton, James Cameron. We're all there in this, I can't remember what studio it was, James Cameron. And I got my manager, Bud Carr, and I walk in, cool rock star that I still think I am. What are you thinking? I get to see you thinking.
Oh, I was going to say Hemdale.
Probably. I can't remember what studio it was. Yeah. So we go in there, still thinking I'm a rock star, I'm still wanting to be a rock star. There's a point to this. Okay. So I'm nice, but I'm like, yeah, cool. I sit and I watch this movie. Now I want you to understand this. You would think that I would know better, but it didn't have any sound effects. Music wasn't in yet, not my songs, not any music. And there was a few occasions where, the Terminator with this, and he's coming like this towards that camera. Remember that with the, and some of this, there was going to be CGI of that era on top of the practical effects. They were going to add some, whatever they were going to do. So it would say up there, insert VFX here. I mean, that's how they would say, to the producers, something else is going to happen here. So, and I was used to just Westerns with my dad and the Virginian. They didn't have all that stuff. I'm looking at this movie, and honestly, I'm going, this is the worst piece of mix I've ever seen in my whole life. You know where this goes, right? And we're walking out, and Bud Carr says to me, he goes, what do you think? It's going to be great, right? And I go, oh my God, that is the worst movie I've ever seen in my whole life. And he's literally going, shh, oh my God, quiet, shh. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to say anything. So we walk out, and he's scolding me. I'm like still, I think I'm 22, 23, I don't know. And he's scolding me, and he's like, don't say anything. I go, okay, I know, no, it's fine. He just, I don't know, it seemed kind of dumb. So fast forward, now the movie's really done, and we're getting to go to the red carpet premiere. And, I go with my manager, and I'm dressed semi-nice. I should have dressed nicer. And I show up, and I'm like, wow, this is really quite the turnout for this James Cameron Terminator movie. And I'm watching this movie in the theater. True story. My jaw is to the floor. And I thought it was probably one of the most amazing movies I'd ever seen in my whole life. Literally, if you go back in time, the Terminator, when it came out, it was scary. It was badass. And it was just, and even the beats were there. Arnold Schwarzenegger was, ought to be back. I mean, and so it was a learning experience. And I don't know if subconsciously somewhere in the back of my mind, all these years, I went, wow, post-production. Wow. I mean, I don't mean like that was the only thing that saved it. I do not mean that at all. It was great performances. Linda Hamilton was fabulous. Michael Biehn, they were great. James Cameron did a great job. But it taught me a lot, to see things in a different light and realize that they're all pieces of one giant puzzle. And it takes all those different movements, or playing a game of not just chess, but chess. And by the time you put it all together, you've got something really wonderful.